Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the only podcast, the Big Ten Championship Game Edition. My name is Chris Fanini. I'm your host, as always, and I'm joined by theonlycolors.com managing editor, Joe Toohey. We're going to talk about some football, some basketball, and all that jazz. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Just got back from the basketball game against Louisville, and
Right.
it's been an interesting day. I actually, on my drive back from Lansing, I was searching the AM stations for the post game interviews, and I stumbled upon somehow on like 1530 AM 1530 a Louisville like local radio station. Like somehow I was pulling like a Louisville station. It was one of the more strange things I've ever encountered in the Lansing area. But
Huh.
yeah,
Weird.
so coming out of the Twilight Zone, I guess, is how I'm doing.
Yeah, we're actually recording this pretty late Wednesday night because it's about the only time we could fit it in. It's been I've had a busy one of the busiest weeks I've ever had with all the coaching hirings and firings going down since about Saturday. Because I mean, not only are teams firing coaches quicker, they're hiring them quicker too. We've already had like 8 or 9 hired, and the regular season just ended. So it's been a busy few days. I've barely even had my mind on the Big Ten championship game, though. Although I'm going to be going. Although my tickets were supposed to come in the mail today, and they did not. So I'm going to have to check that out tomorrow. Are you planning on going?
I'm not actually. Yeah, I wasn't able to corral friends to go, so I'm gonna go to East Lansing actually and watch in East Lansing somewhere, which I think is going to be a pretty good second option. There's the basketball game against Binghamton earlier in the afternoon, so it's going to be quite a day.
Do you know if they're doing any sort of watch party at Breslin?
I don't think they are.
Probably not. I probably would have seen that. But I think it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, especially considering, well, there's going to be a decent chunk of time in between the basketball game and the football game anyways, because the basketball game's in the early afternoon, and then, the football game isn't until 8:15, so
yeah,
it's going to be, yeah. But yeah, I'm excited for Saturday anyways. Somebody should count up how many times MSU has been to Indianapolis between Final Fours and Big Ten tournaments and the Big Ten championship game. I mean, it's got to be like more than 6, but less than 12, like between a half dozen and a dozen times.
Even if you just look at Lucas Oil, they made it in the 2009 NCAA tournament, the 2010 NCAA tournament, the 2011 Big Ten championship game, the 2012 NCAA tournament when they lost to, was it 12 or 13 when they lost to Duke? I get 12 and 13 mixed up for some reason.
13. That would be 13.
13. And then the 2013 Big Ten championship game, the 2015 Final Four, and the 2015 Big Ten championship game. So it's a lot. And I've gone to a chunk of those. I actually am fortunate. My wife's, some of her family, grandparents and sister live in Indianapolis. So we've always had a place to stay down there. And that's obviously a huge deal. It's like a 4-hour drive. And so then when you got a place to stay at, cuts your costs down greatly. So then you can just kind of get tickets. So I think my dad and I are going to go to the football game this time, and stay at my wife's, I think her sister's place. So fortunate there. So it should be interesting though. It's always, have you gone to Big Ten championship game at all?
Yeah, I went to the one in 2011 and the one in 2013.
Yeah,
so that was the other thing. Like it.
You've done it before.
You've done it before, right? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's a fun experience. I mean, Indianapolis is such a great big event town because you've got the stadium and everything's in walking distance, and you got all those bars downtown. There's the mall there. They do a great setup with the fan zone, the fan fest, and the convention center. It's a great deal. Indianapolis really needs to. I know it kind of made a push recently, but Indy really needs to get a football national championship game because the Big Ten's always been at a disadvantage in bowl games, going out down south or going out west, and that'll be the case again. And I understand why. And I'm not even super on board with Detroit hosting anything, but Indianapolis is just like the perfect place to host stuff like that. They get Final Fours all the time. Obviously, it's a big basketball town, but I thought the Big Ten really should have. I guess not the Big Ten, but it should have really been pushed for Indianapolis to try to get to be involved in the new playoff system somewhat. To at least give the Northern, because if between the bowl games, the top seed gets the closest one, and if MSU Ohio State were number one, who would be the closest? It's this year. It's the Cotton Bowl and the Orange Bowl. So I guess I don't know. Is Miami closer? Is that technically the home side advantage? I mean, it's just they got to do something about that, and it's always been a problem though. So
you missed the most important feature of Indianapolis, which I hadn't realized actually until the 2013 Big Ten Championship, but they have very lax open intox laws on the streets too. You can drink so long as you don't have a glass container. You can drink on the street. So in 2013, we went to I forget exactly. It's called Rock Bottom. Was the name of the brew pub that we were at in Indianapolis, and they were serving beers in plastic cups so that you could walk down the street. So it was great because we were there hanging out, having dinner, and then went to the game, but we were able to grab, one for the road, which was great. So it's an underrated element of.
Yeah, I went down there for the Final Four last in the spring, and Wisconsin fans and MSU fans were really on board together in that whole Final Four deal. I'm very curious to see what the fan breakdown is going to be for this. I'm suspecting it's going to be heavy Iowa for a couple of reasons. One, they had an extra week to buy tickets, which is huge. And two, they haven't been there. They haven't been to the Big Ten Championship game. And this will be MSU's third time. And when you throw in all the Final Fours and the other stuff that we mentioned, I think MSU fans aren't as they've done it. And they might be saving their money for a potential playoff deal. So I'm expecting a good chunk. I don't think it'll be like 2013 when it was like 75 and 80% Ohio State because they had all bought tickets before the season even started. But I would expect, I'm going to guess a 60-40 split at least toward the Hawkeyes. I know they want to try to stripe out the stadium depending on odd and even sections. So I'm curious to see how it'll look great in their sections. I'm curious when you get those kind of mixed sections, how that'll turn out. MSU is actually in the opposite sideline corner than it had been the previous two times. It looks like the way they split up east and west. So it's where Ohio State and Wisconsin were. If you've ever been in that stadium for either of those games, you kind of know where they line up. So I just noticed that when I was trying to figure out where to buy tickets. So, yeah, I think it can be a lot of Iowa fans.
I agree. Well, yeah, it's not that far for Iowa either. I mean, I think it's a little closer for MSU, but yeah, I agree completely. Like, my rationale, I think is probably pretty indicative. Like, I've been there several times over the last 5 years. Like, I hopefully will be able to go to a semifinal game here, in a month from now. So just kind of saving money for a potential trip like that. So yeah, it's exciting though. I mean, to be here at this point has exceeded my expectations for the season, and I think yours too.
Yeah. And as we kind of talk about, before we kind of get into the football, I guess, well, we'll talk about before we get into the football stuff, since we're kind of doing the non-sports stuff. Iowa fans really hate MSU. Like it's like an underground rivalry hatred that seems to be heavy on the a lot of it online, but I guess I haven't met many Iowa fans in person. But when it was clear that this was what was going to be the matchup, I thought about that because for two programs who kind of mirrored each other, and D'Antonio said he wanted to model his program after Iowa. There's some animosity there. When D'Antonio started off, I know Iowa and State clashed for a lot of the same kinds of recruits, so they often went up in the recruiting drill. Not as much anymore because MSU has stepped up its recruiting game to higher level prospects now that it started winning. But between the thing that really set it off, you probably noticed too, was Jarrell Worthy in the 2011 game when he may or may not have been faking injuries for whatever reason. I don't know, because Iowa started to move the ball a little bit. Do you remember that game?
Yeah, so the basic idea was, so I actually wrote about the Ferentz D'Antonio series on TOC this week.
Okay, yeah, read that, people. Good plug.
Thanks. So, yeah, I mean, since 2007, it's been a pretty interesting series. So in 2007, MSU had a 17-3 halftime lead. Iowa ended up winning in double overtime. 2008 was the game where Adam Decker had the fourth down stop on Sean Green.
Oh, also, they stormed the field in that 2007 game, which boggled my mind.
They stormed the field in that game?
Yeah.
Holy crap, I had no idea.
It's real easy to storm the field there. And there was a stretch. There was a stretch where they seemed to storm the field all the time because they're right there on the field. And I just noticed they seem to have done it a lot. And I remember they stormed the field at the game, and MSU was like, that was the week before the Michigan game. So MSU was something like
exactly
5-4 or something, probably 5-3 in that game. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yep. So 2008 was the fourth down stop by Adam Decker against Sean Green. And then the underrated part of that game is on the game clinching drive on third down, Brian Hoyer fumbled the snap forward into first down territory and then recovered it somehow.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was wild. And then 2009 was the night game in Spartan Stadium.
Yep.
Where MSU, there was the Colin Sandeman hit that was pretty controversial.
Oh man, that was brutal. I covered that game. I remember the hit by Jeremy Ware. Hit him good, and he was hurt. So then it was a break. I get up to go to the bathroom in the press box, and I get in there and they're playing the radio broadcast, and George Blaha says, "Oh, now they're throwing a flag," and I'm like, "What? How'd they throw a flag for that?" Like so delayed after, and you could make a case it was a penalty right off the bat, but for the penalty to come so late was just strange.
And then MSU hit a hook and lateral after Iowa kicked a field goal to take the lead.
I don't mean to keep interrupting you here. It's
an exciting game.
That is one of the most underrated trick plays of the D'Antonio era because they end up losing the game. That hook and lateral, they get sacked. So they're facing 3rd and 20-something. The hook and lateral from Blair White to Linthicum to Blair White, and then Kirk Cousins throws a touchdown pass like 1 or 2 plays later.
So I'm pretty sure I just rewatched that play. I'm pretty sure it's Charlie Gant, not Linthicum. But
no, I think it was Linthicum. I'm pretty sure it was Linthicum. I don't know, whatever. But anyways, I'm pretty sure it was Linthicum. But they've never run one of those again. They've run the fake field goals, the fake punts. They've never run that hook and lateral again. So
that's true.
That's a play that I think was just that's up on near the top of the list of D'Antonio trick plays that but it doesn't get the love because of what happened next.
Right. So then Kirk Cousins hits Blair White for a touchdown on the next play, and it seemed like D'Antonio and the whole staff just kind of thought that the win was sewn up, but there was still a minute and a half left. So Iowa drives right down. I think it's an MSU 15 with 30 seconds left. There's a pick by Chris L. Rucker that gets called back for defensive holding. There's 3 straight Iowa incompletions by Ricky Stanzi, and then the slant to Marvin McNutt on the very last play of the game, 4th and goal, 2 seconds left to win it for Iowa, which was, I mean, that 2009 season was already in pretty bad shape. I mean, they'd already lost to Central and Notre Dame, so they had kind of come back from a 1-3 start to be 4-3,
Right.
and they still kind of had a shot at the Big Ten if things broke right, but that kind of put that to bed. And then 2010 was
The blowout.
the year where MSU came in 8-0, number 5 in the country, got blown out. It was 30-0 at half, right?
That was the Tyler Sash, the Tyler Sash
Micah
interception. I think he lateraled to Micah Hyde.
I'm pretty sure that's right.
So Micah Hyde was obviously Marcus Hyde's brother, and then I guess Tyler Sash passed away recently, which was terrible to see. I know Iowa's got I think a TS emblem on their helmet, but yeah, that was a blowout game, and at that point, Ferentz seemed to kind of have D'Antonio's number a bit until
because the series was 1-3 at that point, and then in 2011, MSU won that game 37-21. And this is where the fainting kind of fake injury thing happened. The thing about it was that
it was never close.
It was never close. I mean, the points at which Iowa fans complain about that happening, I mean, the game was 34-14.
I don't think MSU. I don't think the game was ever within 10 for most of that. Once MSU took the lead early on, if I recall correctly. So Was it the 2010 game? I think it was when Chris Rucker played after getting arrested.
Yes, so that's sort of a running Iowa theme as well that I missed in the article. Actually, was I forgot that Chris Rucker had gotten out of jail for a DUI and then was immediately.
Yeah,
or was it not a DUI?
I don't remember exactly what it was, but he had apparently tried to. His car was in the 7-Eleven parking lot or something. I guess he was going to move it to the parking garage, and I think he backed out and hit another car, and the dude didn't want to. I believe the police report said the dude didn't want to press charge or anything, so it was fine. But there was a cop there, did the deal, went to jail. Didn't look good for D'Antonio to put Rucker on the field after that. Whether or not you thought it was a big deal, what Rucker did, you open yourself up for criticism when you do that. And at the time, that was less than a year removed from the Rather Hall brawl between the players and the frat, and that was less than 2 years from the Glenn Winston situation. So that was a period there where D'Antonio was getting criticized a lot for the way he was handling legal issues. I think in the past 4-ish years, there hasn't been really much of anything all that big. I know McGarrett King's in the past year, but other than that, they seem
Delton Williams. Well, what was interesting is that with the Delton Williams situation is that, at least on Twitter, Iowa fans were the most irate, which was kind of interesting to me.
Right, and that's what this kind of comes all back to, that they super hate D'Antonio and MSU.
Right. So the 2011 game, right? Well, here's the thing about the faked injuries to slow the hurry up. One, yes, the game wasn't close. Two, you're Iowa, okay? We're not worried about your hurry up offense. You're not Indiana. You're not Oregon. I'm unconcerned about you hurrying the offense up. That's not a problem, right? You're not gaining. MSU is gaining no major advantage by slowing down Iowa's attack, right? This is goofy as hell. But so that was the 2011 game. The 2012 game was also notable because it was it rained the entire time.
It was that game. That was the most miserable. That was the most miserable one because it was cold rain. It was just
right.
It was and that was a game where it looked like MSU off the bat was going to do well. I think Nico Allen got a fumble or something. Le'Veon Bell had a big run for a touchdown, and they were kind of up, and then they John L. Smith the end of the half trying to get the field goal off, and they can't do it, and they let Iowa keep hanging around, That big running back gets the long run.
Wiseman, yeah.
Wiseman gets the long run late in the fourth quarter, and they end up tying it. It goes to the overtimes. They get the pick to seal it to continue what was a brutal season.
So what's interesting, there are a couple interesting things about that game. One is that I forgot about this at the time, but in 2012, 2012 team had pretty high expectations after the 2011 team won that Outback Bowl.
Yeah.
The team at the time going into that Iowa game was 4-2, and the losses were to Notre Dame and to Ohio State.
Right.
And,
the
heartbreaker to Ohio State.
The Iowa game was the one where you thought, okay, now they're in trouble.
Right.
Because I think Michigan was next too.
Right. Exactly. So. Yeah, that was a part of it. The other thing, my other interesting anecdote is that the guy who made the game-sealing interception for Iowa, his name's Greg Castillo, happens to be a friend of a friend, and I actually hung out with him one time a couple years ago now, and it was like, my friend was like, "Oh yeah, here's my friend Greg," and then it came up that he used to play at Iowa, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "What's your last name?" Castillo. Oh, okay. I specifically remember that name, right? So he was a really nice guy, which weirdly was frustrating because I wanted him to be a jerk so that I could dislike him, but he was a nice guy, and so it was just kind of funny. But that's my own little personal anecdote about that one. And then the 2013 game is interesting too because that was one game after Connor Cook had gotten pulled from the final drive against Notre Dame for Andrew Maxwell. And so, there's all this weirdness about, who exactly is the quarterback of this team and all that stuff. And Connor Cook attempted 44 passes or something. And, MSU kind of turned a corner. I remember Joe Rexrode specifically writing about how, that it was a really important game for that particular MSU team because the schedule really opened up after that. We got to play Purdue and Illinois and these teams, and so that was a huge game for MSU. They didn't lose another game that year.
Yeah, and that was the game. That was the game where everything turned around for the wide receivers because Tony Lippett there was a third down. And he makes an unbelievable catch on the sideline, jumping between two guys, something to make the catch. And from that catch on, the switch just went on for all the receivers, for Benny Fowler, for Lippett, for Mumphrey, for the guys who couldn't catch a damn thing in 2012. All of a sudden, after that, in that game, and after that play, it just completely turned around. They did a great job the rest of 2013. 2014, they graduate. And now we're kind of into 2015 where it's mostly Aaron Burbridge and McGarrett Kings. But that group of receivers, because it was coming off of 2012 where the offense was brutal. The early games of 2013, the offense was brutal against Western and South Florida. And then they got it on track against Youngstown, but that was Youngstown. So,
right. And then it was still pretty bad against Notre Dame.
And then it was bad against Notre Dame. So, and then Iowa, it just kind of flipped on, and then they kind of rolled on from there. So all that was the last meeting between these teams, and now they come into 2015, where the outlook for the programs have been very different. I know Iowa went, I think, 7-6 last year, got blown out in the bowl game to Tennessee, and things weren't looking all that great. People were calling for change of coaches. Ferentz, his whole people criticizing him was a deal, and Jake Rudock transfers out. And all of a sudden, they're 12-0 and one win away from going to the college football playoff. What do you see? What sticks out when you look at this Iowa team?
Well, they're basically the platonic ideal of an Iowa football team, right? They are everything that Kirk Ferentz wants to be, and basically the best version of all of it, right? They take care of the football. They generate turnover opportunities. They actually are tied with MSU in terms of turnover margin per game. At number 3 in the country, they're almost 2+2 in the turnover margin per game. And in MSU's case, that is a little bit more due to luck, although I was getting a little bit of luck as well. But they don't allow big plays on defense. They run the ball pretty well. They stop the run pretty well. And they're not going to beat themselves. I mean, CJ Beathard is a pretty good quarterback. You know, he's not going to set the world on fire, but he's not going to, make major mistakes either. So yeah, it's pretty much the apex of Iowa and everything that they kind of hope for their program to be, which is something. But
right. When you think of Iowa and the style they played, this is what you think, and this is them kind of maximizing that out. This isn't like 2002 when they had Brad Banks.
Right.
So it was a little bit different. I first thing that sticks out to me is their defense. Their rush defense has been very good, one of the best in the country. And MSU obviously likes throwing the ball, so that's going to be something because MSU's offensive line has been getting healthy and has done well against Penn State and against Ohio State in the last 2 weeks, and Iowa is going to be its own challenge. And on the other side, they've done a great job running the ball behind a bunch of backup running backs have all done very well, and the offensive line's done a real good job. And there's not much you can really say about this Iowa team that jumps out. It's just they're really solid. They win the turnover battle. Desmond King has 8 interceptions. He's certainly to be lined up against Aaron Burbridge. That'll be a heck of a matchup for sure. And it's just kind of gonna come down to who executes. There's not going to be anything we don't expect. I mean, outside of maybe trick plays, but the style is going to be pretty simple. You've got 2 pro style offenses here. MSU changes things up a bit more, but if you're Iowa, you're going to have to. You're going to have to stop the run against them, and you're going to have to make some plays on offense. I mean.
If we were predicting things that we didn't expect, then they would be things we expected, though, right?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I just all year. I mean, Iowa, Iowa hasn't. I will say their last couple games have been interesting. They put up 40 on Minnesota, but gave up 35, and then they don't convert a third down and win at Nebraska. So. They've had some nail biters the same way MSU has had their share of nail biters. But
they don't have. So that's the interesting thing about Iowa, though, is that yes, they've had these nail biters, but they don't have a win of the quality that MSU has.
No.
Their best win would be MSU's third best win, probably. I mean, beating Wisconsin at Wisconsin.
Okay,
or Northwestern at Northwestern is probably a better win than Oregon at home, is my guess here.
Yeah, I think Northwestern's their best win because just based on where Northwestern is, and Northwestern won at Camp Randall, and Iowa just destroyed Northwestern, absolutely destroyed them. And
right. But is Northwestern good? Like, I don't know. Like, I think
Northwestern's pretty good. I think they're better than Wisconsin. That's why I was saying I would put that there. I mean, I would put MSU's win over Oregon above that. I would put MSU's win over Ohio State over that. I would probably put MSU's win over Michigan over that, even despite the ending. They won the game, and Michigan beat Northwestern 38-0. So if we want to get all transitive on that, I think all 3 of those wins are better. That now MSU lost to Nebraska.
Which is the team that Iowa just beat, yeah.
Right.
And both those games are on the road, but the deal is that, like, so to me it feels like Northwestern's win over Stanford is essentially propping up the entire Big Ten West. So
I think Iowa being 12-0 is propping up the West.
Well, I mean that's
whether or not.
So I went through actually and I looked at the inter-division record between the West and the East because I wondered if one division actually had an advantage over the other, partially because, Maryland and Rutgers are so bad that, I wasn't sure if they would kind of bring it down, and they did to some extent. So actually the record between the divisions is even. It's a 7-7 series, which points to, the East not necessarily being a significantly better division than the West. But I think it just kind of comes down to what the matchups were specifically, and then also the fact that there's kind of a fat middle of the West, which is pretty Big Ten.
Right, and you didn't get a matchup of the top teams. You got the top teams in each kind of playing the bottoms of the other. Iowa didn't play
Right.
MSU or Ohio State or Michigan. The same with Wisconsin, so vice versa.
Right.
Northwestern only played Michigan. So you kind of just got a bunch of bottom teams against middle teams. So I don't even know how much to really put in any of that. I don't know about propping up. If Northwestern wasn't that great, I don't think it would matter because I was just, they're 12-0. They're going to get respect for that, and they should get respect for that. So, and in comparing that, it always was going to come down to, not always, but after MSU beat Ohio State, if they were going to win, if they were to win out, they were going to get in because the winner of the Big Ten, either 12-0 or 11-1, that was going to be it, and that's what it is, and I mean that's what it comes down to. You win, you're in, and if you lose, I don't think MSU is going to have a very good chance at the Rose Bowl. I guess I think the Rose Bowl is going to take the highest ranked Big Ten team, and I'm certain that they will fall behind Ohio State if they lose.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So, however, there is a chance they could still end up in a different New Year's Six Bowl. The other one is the
Fiesta,
the Peach Fiesta. So there's a chance the Big Ten could get 3 in those 6. So it's a possibility.
Yeah, I would agree. But I think so. My biggest question with Iowa though is still, what team? Where are they? The team that beat Northwestern 40-10 in Evanston, or are they the team that eked out wins in back-to-back weeks at Indiana and at home against Minnesota? Right, like there's a fair amount of variability in their outcomes, and you could say the same thing about MSU, but at least MSU has those wins where you can say they went on the road and they beat Michigan in Ann Arbor, they went on the road and they beat Ohio State in Columbus, right? So there's some guarantee of quality with wins over opponents that are top 15, top 20 type opponents, although I guess Northwestern falls in there, but Northwestern, I'm still not totally convinced that Northwestern's good. I mean, they beat Stanford in week 1 of the season, but they got totally beat down at home by both Iowa and Michigan. And then other than that, I mean, they had a close win in Madison against Wisconsin. Like, it's a weird, I don't know, Northwestern's a weird team, and I feel like the bowl game will tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, at the other hand, I mean, MSU struggled to put away Rutgers, struggled to put away Air Force, but however, struggled to put away Purdue, lost to Nebraska. But since that Nebraska game, they've looked really, really good. They beat Ohio State, they whooped Penn State, they handled Maryland with a backup quarterback mostly. So I think they're playing their best ball coming in. MSU has looked down at times, but I think coming into this game that MSU is the better team than Iowa. Do I think they're going to win? I don't know. We'll get to our picks in a minute. But MSU is favored a little bit by Vegas. I at the same time, I still believe this is MSU's worst team of its last 3 between the 2013 team, the 2014 team, and this year's team. I think this is the worst of the 3. However, it's in the best position to win the national championship thanks to the playoffs. I think the 2013 team could have been in there too, but it doesn't matter how they are compared to other MSU teams. All that matters is how they compare to the team they're lined up across against, and that's an Iowa team that has won all its games and deserves a lot of credit for doing so. But I think if MSU plays how it's been playing, I think it'll win this game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Are you suggesting that I'm disrespecting Iowa because I feel like that would be bad, some bad karma?
No. I think I was good. I feel like they've become such a hot button deal where, and I'm not saying you think this, but you've got SEC people saying they're god awful, and you've got Iowa people saying they're amazing. And I think it's closer to the amazing, but it's an in between there. I think they deserve a lot. I don't want this to discredit anything they've done, and I don't think if MSU wins, I don't think that would discredit what they do either. And I think Iowa would have depends on the score. But if Iowa loses, they've got a decent shot at the Rose Bowl too. Although they didn't play Ohio State, that's the deal. That's the thing.
But it's been a really long time since Iowa went to the Rose Bowl. I mean, I think that would be. Well, if I was a Rose Bowl person,
I'm pretty sure the Rose Bowl said they're going to take whatever the highest ranked Big Ten team is. So that would come down to if they fall behind Ohio State. That's the deal with MSU. Some people think that the committee would not want to put Michigan State behind Ohio State, considering Michigan State just won at Ohio State. However, I just think they will mostly because of recency bias. And I know MSU will have 2 losses over 1, but they beat Ohio State at Ohio State.
I also think that Ohio State's dominant win against Michigan would play in their favor there, yes. Right? Where
they should not be ranked number 6 right now. They should not have been ranked number 9 when they lost to MSU. They had done absolutely nothing. But they were number 1, first ever unanimous number 1, and they coming off the national championship, and they've kind of been living off of that and the reputation of being Ohio State this whole time, and because of that, because of that and a great performance against Michigan last week, no doubt. But because of that, they're in a very good position right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, the way that the bowls will shake out is something that I've tried to sort of ignore because I don't want to put the thought of a non-semifinal matchup in my mind.
But before the 2013 game on TOC, I wrote a column picking MSU to lose, but also thinking they were going to go to the Rose Bowl because of it. So it's been done. So it's been done.
Losing and getting to the Rose Bowl, yeah.
Well, I mean the idea, the writing of it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
I got you.
Yeah. So, all right. Do you want to make a pick? I haven't even thought.
Sure.
Of this.
Hold on. I did a Q&A with Ross from Blackheart Gold Pants, and I made a prediction, and
gotta make sure it consistent.
Yeah. So I think ultimately it's I think that the MSU wins if they can avoid a special teams disaster. And that is something that, has happened from time to time. But I think that the advantages that MSU has on both offensive and defensive line, configurations on either side of the ball is going to be a little bit too much for Iowa. I just don't think that Iowa's had to deal with an offensive line or a defensive line like MSU's yet this season, and their style of play is so predicated on sort of winning in the trenches like that. But I don't think it's going to be an easy game. But yeah, I'm going to take MSU 24-20.
I was thinking about that. I think MSU has the advantage because of its skill players and the ability to hit the big play. However, MSU's going to need to tackle better because Saquon Barkley was running over them quite a bit last week, nearly picking up a third down on a 3rd and 20-something on a run last week. They're going to have to wrap up like they did against Ohio State because they did not tackle well against Penn State and ended up putting Penn State in so many passing situations because of the turnovers, and that's the other deal. Both of these teams are atop the Big Ten or at the top of the Big Ten in turnover margin. So if somebody loses this turnover margin, 1 or 2 turnovers in a bad spot could also be a difference. My score is going to be MSU 27, Iowa 20. So we're actually pretty close there.
Yeah, I think I just expect it from a turnover perspective. I just sort of expect it to be really clean both ways. I don't expect, especially because it's being played indoors. I think that will help.
Well, Cook will have to avoid one of those bad interceptions he throws every once in a while. He did throw one against Ohio State in 2013 in that stadium.
That's true. But I think that when it comes down to the passing game, that the fact that MSU can get pressure in a way that Iowa is going to struggle to do since they lost Drew Ott a few weeks ago is going to be a little bit more helpful in terms of potentially generating turnovers. I think that the one unit sort of that that is clearly better for Iowa than it is for MSU is Iowa's secondary. But I think that MSU has, and maybe the running back situation for Iowa too, because Kanzeri has been very good.
Very good.
But other than that, I mean, I think it's a pretty even split. I mean, maybe at tight end as well, with Krieger Coble for Iowa. But I mean, I think MSU's got the edge at quarterback. I think MSU's got the edge on the offensive line. I think MSU's got the edge.
I think the offensive
receiver.
lines are pretty even. I think Iowa's offensive line is really good. I would put
So
them even,
so
that's
maybe
me.
yeah, a push. I'd give you a push there. I think MSU's defensive line is superior. I think the linebackers are probably pretty even. And then I think Iowa's secondary is superior. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that of all, not that tells you all that much necessarily, but I do think that MSU has an advantage in some of these phases of the game that I think will be especially important. And I think, sometimes it's the statistical analysis is hard because we only got 12 games, which is always small sample size. And then the amount of change that happens on a week-to-week basis is also really makes me struggle. Because, is this MSU team the MSU team that just blew out Penn State and beat Ohio State on the road without their quarterback? Or is it the team that, needed a strong fourth quarter to beat Rutgers, right? I mean, or blew a 2-score lead against Nebraska in the final several minutes. But
right, I mean, I think do you trust Connor Cook to make the third down throws? Absolutely, he's been money on third down. Do you trust CJ Beathard to make those throws? I'm not sure. If these teams can stop each other's running the ball, which quarterback can make the plays that they need to? And Connor Cook has always made, all year he's made those big plays at the big times when they've needed him, and I think that'll be the difference.
So I think one other interesting thing is that Beathard for Iowa is
you got the splits?
Pretty adept runner.
Yeah.
So what I noticed against Penn State, or something that concerned me against Penn State, was, and it hadn't really reared its head in 2015 yet, was that the defensive line seemed to do a poor job of actually wrapping up Hackenberg in situations where there could have been a sack, and instead he kind of escaped and gained a few yards or something like that in a scramble. That could be a major issue against Iowa because Beathard is a better runner than Hackenberg. And, if you have any flashbacks to Marcus Mariota in the 2014 MSU Oregon game, then that's going to be a bad sign.
Yep.
So I mean, that goes to your point about tackling in space, but I think defensive linemen tackling a quarterback in space is sort of especially important because it has the ability to be a hugely positive play for the defense or a negative one.
And
in space is a little different.
I mean, this isn't like an option deal like JT Barrett. These are nothing's open. There's a spot. I'm going to hit it. And those, the unpredictable ones, the ones you can't game plan for, and that's where it's going to come. So we both predict MSU wins in kind of some slugfests. Should be a good game. It's on Fox. Not sure what time it's at.
Law of Gus.
Yeah, he'll be great. He's always great. I'll have to record it, listen to him later. So, all right, let's wrap up with basketball here. So, you're, like you say, you're coming from Breslin, where MSU just beat Louisville, and MSU's also coming off winning the Wooden Legacy Classic, with Izzo complaining about the officiating in the game. But 2 straight games, Providence and Louisville. MSU has been pretty tired, played a lot of games in the last week, and they've played some ugly basketball, and they've trailed for quite a bit. But they pull out 2 wins against teams I think are pretty good in Providence and Louisville. I think those are both pretty good teams. And assuming they beat Binghamton, they'll be ranked number 2. Although I would argue they should be ranked number 1 based on who they've beaten. It's kind of like the football deal. Kentucky beat Duke, and they haven't beat anybody since. So, but that's me. So what do you when you're looking at the team right now? They're looking, pretty good. What's your takeaway of the team right now?
Yeah, well, so I mean, yeah, you couldn't be any happier with the team, basically. I mean, it was a little disappointing that Arizona lost to Providence in that Wooden Legacy tournament because, playing an Arizona team that was uh, supposed to be the Pac-12 frontrunner this year, although the Pac-12 as a basketball conference isn't all that strong necessarily, would have been interesting. And being able to play Kansas, Arizona, Louisville, and Florida all in the non-conference would have given you a pretty good idea of who this MSU team is. But yeah, I agree. I think Providence is better than I had given them credit for. Chris Dunn is a real player, and Ben Bentil for them was very good in that game as well. It seems like MSU has, to some degree, mastered the art of looking horrible, but only being down by like 6 or 7 points. That happened
Right.
against Kansas in the early going. It happened against Providence in the early going, and then it happened again tonight against Louisville in the early going.
They fell down by about 13, but other than that, they were kind of just hanging around there.
Right. I mean, but yeah, you look up and you go, oh man, this team's playing really bad. They're down by 13. You look up again, and all of a sudden it's only a 6-point deficit or whatever. And so that's, I don't know how much skill is involved in that, or if it's just that my untrained eye is failing me a little bit. But Denzel Valentine has really cemented himself as one of the top, if not the top player in college basketball right now, given, he had very close to another triple-double against Boise State. He's getting pretty close to that type of stat line pretty much every game now.
Right. Even when you think he doesn't play well, like against Louisville, it kind of felt like a down game, but he finishes with, I think, 24, 5, and 7. Let me see. I got the box.
Yeah, 25, 5, and 7.
25, 5, and 7. So,
and I thought he played poorly against Providence as well, and he ended up with 15 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, and only 1 turnover. So, I mean, he's been a revelation to some degree. I mean, I figured that he was going to play a major role, but for him to take the step forward in usage and just general role on the team that he has, while being actually even more efficient, shooting better from 3 despite taking a harder set of shots to get there, has been really impressive. And he's getting to the line more than he did, driving to the rim a little better. So he's been really impressive. Against Providence, they struggled to some degree with finding a second offensive option when Valentine got into some foul trouble. It seems like the idea is that that'll be Aaron Harris. He is not.
He's been trying a little bit more.
Yeah,
he's been trying to create, but he's not. He's having trouble on defense still, and that's
I think so. Yeah, I think the struggle for him is after sitting for a year. One, just getting back into the flow of play, and he should be there by now. But the other thing is, it seems to me like his instinct is to take shots that Izzo doesn't like, and so it appears, and it seems like he's trying to take that coaching to heart. I mean, it seems like he's trying not to take the shots, but you see some of those shot fakes that you go, oh, he's thinking about that actually. So yeah, it's been interesting to watch Aaron Harris try to grow into that role. Matt McQuaid has continued to be a pretty good player. And play some important minutes. Deonta Davis has been excellent, especially on the offensive boards. MSU actually had more offensive rebounds than Louisville had defensive rebounds tonight, which is
you're right. Yeah, incredible. 17-16, and that's surprising because Louisville's a big team, and MSU is struggling early with that length. So
I think what I liked that Izzo did, and I don't know, maybe we'll see this a little bit more when Gavin Schilling gets healthy, but playing Matt Costello and Deonta Davis at the same time. And I thought that was a pretty effective strategy. And I can't believe that we've gone this long without mentioning Kenny Goins, who had an unbelievable game. I could not believe
13 rebounds against Louisville. And he was the zone breaker. He was sitting there in the middle of the zone. Hit a jump shot, delivered a pass to Forbes for a 3. He had a hell of a game.
Yeah, he was
He got
unbelievable.
cut, and he got cut on his nose and had a bunch of blood on him. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw that if you were at the game. I
yes.
think
Well,
I didn't.
I noticed
I didn't.
them.
Yeah, I didn't see how it happened, but
Yeah.
it's pretty bad.
Um. So yeah, that was a revelation. But the weird part about that is, so this team is really deep. And so it's weird to me that, I mean, it seemed like Javon Best couldn't get going. It seemed like it was a bad matchup for Javon Best because
Yeah,
he doesn't have the length to deal with the Anuakus of the world. And then Marvin Clark seems to still be kind of clawing back from injury. He's my personal favorite, but he isn't quite right yet. So yeah, I mean, to get really meaningful minutes from Kenny Goins, who has vaulted past Wallenman at this point, even
yeah,
who had been a useful player last year. I mean, Wallenman didn't see the court in this one.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
if someone's having trouble or if someone's going well, Izzo can just go to another option. Like he doesn't need to see if a guy can work his way out of a thing. And like I said, they didn't use Wallerman in this game. They don't have Schilling. They've got some guys that are injured. And one thing I noticed in this game, they kind of adapted. I think Valentine was struggling a little bit um, with the press and the length, and they were trying to double him quite a bit. He finished with 4 turnovers in this game. I think that's the concern when you think about its NBA potential, the way he was kind of playing the point guard here. But they started slow offensively. And I think they adapted though, and they started to move the ball better. And so Valentine could still get his assists through different ways, through just great team passing and finding Forbes open for a three. There's great mood. There's a lot of good chemistry on this team, especially between Forbes and Valentine for how they work together. And that's when you get Forbes at throwing in 20 points, even though he basically just does it as a shooter and not a whole lot of dribbling. But that's having other people create for themselves is still an issue. But I think they kind of worked their way out of it in this game when it wasn't happening early for Valentine. They were able to distribute it and do a lot of things. And this team, I mean, like I said, they played like crap for quite a while. They played a ton of games in the last few weeks, but then they make the plays in the second half. They make the plays down the stretch and get the win. And they just, I mean, that's a sign of a good team when everything they've had to deal with, and to come out on top and to have the confidence and ability to make the plays late. This is a really, really good team that I think is still figuring itself out. I mean, like I said, Kenny Goins and Deontay Davis are sort of leading you down low a bit with Costello, and to get a lot out of them. Davis seems so poised out there. He does not seem overwhelmed at all as a freshman. I think back to what Adrian Payne was like as a deal, and anytime he got the ball in his hands, you just kind of mentally panic. You don't really know what to do. Davis is locked in and knows what he's doing, and he's only going to get better as this year goes on.
yeah, I mean, yeah, Davis has been very impressive in any number of ways. I mean, he had 3 blocks in this game. He's had 5 multi-block games already in his short MSU career, and is going to be really a force to be reckoned with in time.
And he looks comfortable in his body. He doesn't look like a guy who's lanky and doesn't really
right.
know how he's still growing into his body, figure out how to dribble at the proper length and move along with his body like Adrian Payne felt like a couple times early in his career before he got used to it. Davis seems like he's already there. Like he knows what he is. He knows what he can do.
Yep. Well, so the other thing I wanted to mention is that I think there's some question about how good Louisville was coming into this year, because they are playing a couple transfers, are kind of their lead guys, Damian Lee and Trey Lewis, and I think that those guys played actually really well tonight for them. And I think that Louisville is going to be a pretty decent team going forward, and I think that this win from MSU is going to look good in time, partially because Rick Pitino is just a really good coach, but also partially because I think that this Louisville team is a little underrated at this point, given as much size as they've got, which you mentioned, and also Damian Lee and Trey Lewis were guys that could really hit shots. I think So they only shot 24% from three in this game, but it seemed like all of those threes came
right after MSU threes.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
they right after anytime MSU hit a three, there was an immediate three, and they really traded threes a couple different times. So yeah, it was that was interesting. The other thing that was really nice was up to three different times, Denzel Valentine got sent to the line and drilled both of his free throws. To keep the game, a two-possession game. And that's really nice because after last season with so many games that, ended up being losses because of free throw shooting or just closer than they needed to be because of free throw shooting at the end of games, to be a little bit better from the free throw line is pretty nice.
Yeah, the biggest issue in this game, which was always the issue against Louisville, was the turnovers.
Yep.
They had a number of them on out of bounds plays, which had been a bad spot for Izzo teams for a while, and it had kind of cut down the last couple of years. But a couple of bad turnovers there. They didn't attack the press as much as I thought they should, but I think part of that was because they're still working on getting the fast break going. Something I really noticed today when I think about last year's team, Kenny Goings had a great game, but when he gets the defensive rebound off a miss, it takes him an extra second or two to find the point guard and get the ball out. Brandon Dawson and Draymond before him, obviously, were so good at getting the ball and getting out, and boom, they were going. Like Dawson could get the ball out before he even hit the ground, and Kenny Goings is a freshman, and Brandon Dawson was a senior, so that's something they'll have to develop. And MSU didn't really get to attack the press as much as I think they would have liked to, and the way they should against a team like that. And I think that was part of the reason as they kind of grow up, the younger guys grow up and get more used to how MSU kind of wants to get out on the break.
Yeah, and I thought Tum Tum was struggled in this game, right? I mean,
that's the other thing.
For 5 from the field.
Yeah, and you've got a point guard too who is still, young and working with new players down there.
Yeah, and trying to figure out exactly who the primary ball handler is going to be, because there are times out there on the floor, even when Tum Tum's playing, where Denzel ends up being the primary ball handler on a possession, and so yeah, just kind of working out those kinks, I think, is something that they kind of still need to work on.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the box score right now. Kenny Goins got more minutes than Javon Bess and Marvin Clark combined.
Yeah, I mean, he earned them.
It's just, if you had told me that Kenny Goins, you told me that Kenny Goins is going to play a major role against Louisville in before the season started, I would have told you that this MSU team was 4-3, and we were wondering about if they were going to make the tournament. Like
they had him in there down the stretch against, I think it was Purdue, or maybe it was one of the other Wooden games, but they had him in there at the end. He's earning his minutes, and it's a good sign moving forward. So last thing I'll say,
sure,
I'm not a fan of the Tum Tum nickname because his name is Lou Rawls. Like, it's way more interesting. He was named after his dad. I think he's near junior. His dad was named after Lou Rawls, and
right.
I think that's way more interesting than the nickname Tum Tum. I feel like Lou Rawls is getting not enough love for that name. So that's going to do it. Yeah. Anything else you want to add on football or basketball?
Naquan Jones recommitted
yes,
a couple nights ago, which was a weird saga, but he's back in the fold. He's a top 3 recruit out of Illinois, defensive tackle for 2016. So good to have him back.
The program has been unscrapped, as it were, because obviously all the recruits abandoned ship after the Nebraska game and then immediately got back on ship because they beat Ohio State. That's not at all the case, but I'm sure some people think that, but that's not.
Yeah, Twitter seems to believe that pretty hard. But yeah, that's absolutely not the case. It's
recruiting. Things fluctuate.
The last recruiting thing, Donnie Corley has set his announcement date. He's been he's a big recruit that has been a reported MSU lean for some amount of time. He's a receiver out of Detroit King, and just finished up his season. I believe King won the state championship actually on a catch that Corley made. But so he's announcing on the 8th, which is a big announcement from MSU. Would be a pretty nice addition to the class. Yeah, that's about all the recruiting news though.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we went longer on this podcast than I expected. I was expecting an hour, or I mean 40 minutes, but we went the normal about hour. I guess the Iowa MSU rivalry just kind of brings out a lot in it. So
we need to name it. We need a name for it at some point.
I don't know. We've already got the Apple deal.
The Honeycrisp with Minnesota.
Honeycrisp thing, yeah. So Iowa's got plenty of trophies. This is more just about pure hatred for how other schools run their programs and fake injuries. So that's kind of what this whole rivalry is built upon. Yeah,
we don't give them nearly enough guff for the rhabdomyolysis thing. Like we can't even. I guess we're disrespecting the rhabdo incident.
This is why I don't get into that stuff, because it's just when fans get into off-field actions and try to judge other programs, but everybody just looks bad and it's a waste of time and so not even worth getting into that. I think I'm gonna be on Black Herkle podcast. I think tomorrow. I'm sure this will get brought up. So.
Well, good luck, man.
That'll be fun. So, all right, thanks everybody for listening. Follow on Twitter at The Only Colors. I'm at Chris Vanini. He's at JOBIN2E. Make sure you're always checking out theonlycolors.com for the latest stuff. A lot of good stuff, especially coming in the championship weekend and with basketball getting going. And subscribe on iTunes. Search theonlycolors.com or The Only Colors podcast. Should be there. Subscribe to iTunes. Appreciate it. Give us a review. Tell us it's better than all other MSU podcasts out there, of which there are none, because this is the only one. And we will talk to you guys next week after a big football game. So see you.
See ya.